Hello everyone. Continuing with our budget interview series with BDO, we have their partner and practice leader, Ms. Gunjan Prabhakaran, who is the practice leader for Indirect Taxes.
Hi, Megha.
Hello, Gunjan.
Hello.
Good to have you here.
Thank you so much, Megha. Thank you for having me over. Thank you.
So would you like to walk us through some of the key indirect tax amendments of the budget?
Sure. In fact, one would wonder these days budgets are really not the only time when we look into amendments. As far as GST law is concerned, the amendments, notifications, through notifications or circulars, they are coming all the time. So it's throughout the year. So it's not just the budget, that plays a very significant role at this point of time for indirect taxes. But having said that, yes, this year as well, there are quite a few changes proposed under CGST Act, under IGST Act, and the Customs Law. Nothing very significant. If you would want to know that, is there anything earth-shattering for the assessees to worry about? Not really. And these are just tweaks that have been made in the law. And as all of us have been seeing for last 3 years, the government has been very prudent in terms of making any changes in the laws. And while yes, some provisions that have been introduced from time to time have been fairly onerous, especially relating to input tax credit restrictions. But the changes have been far and few, irrespective of what effect it will have on the ground, which has been a concern in the past. But the government has not gone overboard. The objective since the discussion about Atmanirbhar Bharat in 21-22, government has continued to focus on fiscal consolidation and long-term growth. I think it kind of stemmed because of the pandemic, and we have all successfully come out of the pandemic. I would want to believe so. And still India has been able to fare really well. And this budget itself is a proof that, again, the aim or the objective is towards fiscal consolidation and long-term growth. But key specific amendments which really caught my attention, I'll probably talk about the favorable ones first, and then maybe I can move on to the unfavorable ones as well.
Sure.
But the favorable amendments, according to me, under the GST law, to begin with, the most important one is the decriminalization of offences under Section 132. And really the high-handedness being shown even for petty issues was becoming a big concern for the assessees. And I have not seen an indirect tax head or a CFO or an MD getting worried about GST matters in the erstwhile years. Now, of course, everybody gets worried if there is a GST notice because the repercussions could be significant. But it's good, kind of gets a lot of attention for indirect taxes as well. And now, because of the kind of automation and the data access that government has, companies or assessees don't have a choice but to pay attention, to get their house in order, to get their data in order, to ensure that there are no problems. So that's really the first one. Second is, of course, raising the threshold limit for launching prosecution. That has been increased from 1 crore to 2 crore. Really a welcome move, because 1 crore is really nothing in terms of launching a prosecution. That's a very welcome change. The third one, I would really say, very neutral. There is a clarification provided in respect of online information database access retrieval. The words essentially automated and minimal human intervention have been dropped. So while there is one school of thought that these changes have brought in the clarification to the definition, but to my mind, it may result in a lot of complications. So we are yet to deep dive into this and see how is this going to impact online education, online gaming, because we have guidance from the government itself that YDAR includes online gaming education. And in fact, we have evaluated this for a host of clients where we have differentiated whether it will qualify as OIDAR or not on the basis of these two principles, which is essentially automated and minimum human intervention. My view is that it will create complications, but we are yet to deep dive, and probably we'll come up with some more thoughts on this later. But yes, at least a clarification and dropping these two qualifications, it may turn out to be a positive impact. The other thing is also amendment to the definition of non-taxable online recipient. So
Okay.
if you would be aware already, so when somebody is using OIDAR services, it could be a registered person located in India, or it could be an unregistered person. So any unregistered person who was receiving such services, if it is not in relation to business, they are not required to pay GST. So it is something that change has been brought about in the definition. And now whether you are registered or unregistered, you will be required to pay GST. So this again needs to be really looked into carefully, because I personally feel there will be an impact on online education, and given the kind of laws that are being reformed for attracting foreign universities to India, it should not become a deterrent. But honestly, we are yet to deep dive on OIDAR matters.
Sure.
So any questions that you have, or can I move on to the unfavorable
Yeah,
ones?
so one thought I had on, when you were saying that now going forward GST will be payable even where the receiver of the service, if I'm correct, is an unregistered user. That will also lead to some credit mismatches, or that would lead to a credit.
Not really credit mismatches. I think that's why I said that we need to deep dive, because if it is an unregistered person, I think indirectly the government is trying to bring the companies, foreign companies who are providing OIDR services, to take registration in India.
In India.
Because a person who is unregistered, how is he or she going to, really discharge liability? And
Exactly.
that's the reason why I said, we need to deep dive into this and look into it only from the point of view, especially for me, because I have worked on online gaming and education sector on my own, but clearly something worth working on and looking into in detail.
Okay, understood. So it could be an indirect way of forcing them to get registration.
No, and it's, see, the government has been focusing on online gaming. There's already so much controversy in terms of a game of skill or a game of chance. There has been so much dispute on the value to be adopted, whether it is the prize money or just, the money that is deposited for participation. So I think the objective is clearly to bring them under the GST loop, so that the government doesn't lose that kind of revenue. But I guess there are also valuation norms. We were hoping some amendments will be introduced, but nothing has happened under the GST valuation rules as far as online gaming is concerned.
Okay, this seems to be the new favorite this season, with even Direct Taxes introducing some amendments on the tax and TDS front for online gaming. I'm sure we'll see more in this space to come.
No, absolutely. And I think online gaming has been in the limelight for quite some time now. And I think it is going to become significantly an important source of revenue, because the government has been traditionally, or rather in India, the government has been of the viewpoint that online gaming is not something that needs to be encouraged, especially when it is in the form of betting.
A game of chance, yeah.
Yeah. So the moment you say it's a game of chance, it's something people go back to Draupadi, and they think about all the bad things that can happen out of gambling. So it is a concern, and it has popped up in multiple discussions and multiple forums. But yes, the definition tweak that has happened for non-taxable online recipient, according to me, is going to open a lot of it's going to open a can of worms.
Yeah, but I'm sure it will be an interesting space to watch out.
Absolutely.
Both on the DT and IDT front.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it was good to have your insights on some of the positive changes. If against popular opinion, but we will have to discuss some of the not so popular changes, some of the not so positive changes of the budget 2023 also, if you can shed some light on that.
Right. According to me, I was, though some people claim that that they may not hold the same view, but according to me, disallowance of input tax credit on corporate social responsibility related expenses is not a welcome move. I think that's maybe because we just feel that it's something mandated. Sorry, because it's mandated by law under the Companies Act, and the companies, they incur a lot of expense in terms of taking these initiatives. And by taking these initiatives, we are in turn able to help and support a particular section of society. It could be anything. It could be a company using their own products or services to extend support or help, and it could be even something else altogether which does not pertain to business. But as we are aware, there's been a lot of litigation on this. And again, to be honest, we know the key reason would be to bring parity between the direct tax and the indirect tax, logic. Because if it is not considered as a business or profession for one, how can it be considered for indirect tax purposes? So while that may be so, I think it's going to just discourage companies from undertaking CSR initiatives at the scale and size that we would have hoped them to. And of course, in the past, there are already significant expenses incurred. I don't think so anybody will be able to do anything about it. And this change is definitely not retrospective. So that's another matter.
So I think the finance ministry wants companies to do CSR out of the goodness of their heart and not for the tax benefit.
In fact, Megha, I did read about it somewhere, not in the context of budget, but this was, I think, way back because this dispute has been going on. So there was a tax expert who did mention that it is a social and a moral obligation. How can it be used to the advantage of the company? But the fact is that the law is mandating you to do it. And it can be any other law, but at the end of the day, it's a law that is mandating you to do it. You are using the funds of the company to do it, right? Indirectly, there is a brand building that is happening for the company. Then how is it not in relation to business, right? And at the end of the day, all of us know about all the multitude of issues where government has stretched, imagination to tax a particular transaction. Even for, I think just last week, there was a discussion happening about IPO expenses, right? So there it is considered that it may be in relation to sale of securities. So the credit should not be allowed. So there cannot be any end to it, if we further keep on complicating the ITC understanding. It has to be simple. But now itself, if you see with the CSR amendment, this proposed amendment, we have added another clause, FA. Now, how many more are we going to have? Right? So the key ask, which was simplification of restrictions on input tax credit, I don't think so it's happening. And it will not happen, very unlikely. In fact, just before the video, just before the budget, we were talking to another media house and we were of the firm view that it will not be changed. But at least what government can do is to reduce the rigors towards audit and scrutiny, so that give people space and time. And that's where the industry was hoping that maybe there could be an amnesty or there could be some kind of a dispute resolution mechanism that can help the assessees to resolve some of the basic issues. It could be something as basic as, just a reconciliation issue. But yes, I think that's one of the most unfavorable according to me.
Sure. One last question on this, since it's generated so much interest. You did mention that this is not a retrospective change. So does that mean the accumulated credit, if any, will still be available for companies to set off?
See, there is a timeline for you to avail credit. So at least current year is what people could have looked at, but it's a negative amendment. So there is nothing really they can do about it.
Okay.
No. It's highly unlikely. People can explore 16(4), but very unlikely there cannot be a positive outcome
out of it. Understand your views on this. Any other negative amendment in the budget that you want to talk about?
Any other negative amendment? It was more towards OIDAR, but again, whether it's a positive or negative really will need some more research.
Sure.
And I wouldn't say negative, but I think maybe because nothing was talked about setting up of the tribunal, or talking about the National Advanced Ruling Authority. I think most important is setting up of the GST Tribunal, at least some sort of an indication. And likewise, say introduction of the Desh Bill. Now, these are really important things that need to be, announced ASAP, or at least some sort of a roadmap. So that the investors, so that the companies, they can really think and plan their couple of years ahead.
Sure. So yeah, these seem to be the misses, right, in the GST announcement.
Oh,
and even the dispute resolution scheme, right? I thought people were expecting some clarity or roadmap of sorts on that also.
Right. People were expecting a lot of things, especially under GST. The list is so long. In fact, Megha, you won't believe, like from last 2 years, I've been tracking the wish list, as I call it. And the wish list is only, I'm adding more things to it instead of, really
knocking them off.
Yeah, there is nothing. I've not been able to strike out any, like maybe one or two. But
Okay.
having said that, I don't want to sound negative about it. And
Sure.
the fact is, I'm sure you are also aware. It's not that the government is not listening. Government is listening. They are bringing changes. They are rather slow. And even the recent 48 GST Council meeting is a testimony to that, because all the changes that we are talking about, 132 for decriminalization of offenses, and little reliefs that the industry is asking for, government is listening and trying to find a solution. But they are trying to create a win-win. They can't let go of revenue, and at the same time, they don't want to overburden the assessees.
Absolutely. Otherwise, where do we get all the capex from? The capex spend that the FMS promised us. So,
absolutely.
Yes. So, okay, moving on to our next question. Any sector-specific announcements which you think our audience should get to know about?
Sector-specific, to be honest, I'm sorry, I think I'm losing you. Can you hear me, Megha?
I can, Gunjan.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm back. Yeah.
Hi. So,
sorry, what was your question?
Yeah, I'll repeat my question. So my question was, any sector-specific announcements which you think our audience should be aware of? Anything at all?
I think one really good thing, and in fact, I should have mentioned this when we were talking about favorable announcements. The government is really looking at, government has in this budget looked at rate rationalization. Okay. And it has touched upon multiple sectors. So whether we are talking about lab-grown diamonds, or whether we are talking about auto sector, the government has really tried to have a look at, and I know this exercise has been going on for last 3-4 years, that government is trying to look into the pool of not just the rates as applicable, but also on the list of exemptions, how they apply to various products, right? So what they are trying to do is reduce the import duties on raw materials so that we can augment domestic manufacturing, and increase the import duties on finished products so that we can discourage imports of products, because that would be, we'll not be able to create a level playing field for the domestic manufacturers. So I think in lieu of that itself, the auto sector, and as I talked about the lab-grown diamonds, I think it's going to be a very good opportunity for them in these two sectors. And of course, other than that, not from an indirect tax standpoint, but clearly agriculture and energy sector was talked about the most. And I'm sure we are going to see a lot of investment in these two sectors, the way the COEs are being, set to be formed, even for millets. And another sector would be the pharma sector, where there are going to be investments to encourage research and development. But all of this, I think one thread is really common here, which wants to promote Make in India.
Make in India, of course. I think my personal favorite, but my personal favorite was the announcements around artificial intelligence and
absolutely. No, and in fact, again, so that was the second point I was coming to, that the common thread, while it is Make in India, if you look at whether they talked about agriculture, energy, infrastructure, auto, everywhere they want to do it using technology.
Yes.
And this is all recent, right? It's just 3-4 years. It's not something that have been happening for decades. And it's amazing how government, slow and steady, but through law, has been able to change the mindset of the assessees and make them to think about technology. And in fact, it's really heartwarming to see when we meet some clients and they are at times ahead of service providers. They'll be like, it's already automated. I've already looked into this. I've already looked into that. But yes, technology, I think, especially AI, ML, are going to really take the center stage. And with so much focus from government side, I think it's only going to help us become paperless in terms of our administration, at least in future.
Yeah, one more point added to our wish list.
Every year we add on quite a few, and as I said, the list is very long. I'm sure I would have missed out quite a few, but yeah.
So we've largely discussed the questions I had. There is anything else of importance that you would want to cover or give any closing comments on the IDT front?
I think as far as indirect taxes are concerned, I think on the GST front, two most important things that need to be addressed, and I'm hoping that something would happen or come out of a GST Council meeting or the upcoming one. The setup of the GST Tribunal, most important. I think litigation is kind of assuming a shape and size that we don't want, and it'll only complicate the law. We'll end up setting principles, which will create multitude of litigation in the future. And the second one would be, how do we manage input tax credit related restrictions? Can there be more clear guidance in terms of what is, because having so many restrictions, we are not in line with what an ideal GST law is supposed to be. Because if we are going to affect an assessee's ability in terms of having adequate working capital, I think it's going to hurt the businesses and in turn the growth. So really these two areas need attention, and from a custom standpoint, it's very important that there is some announcement with respect to Desh Bill. Because it's a very, very significant change, and hopefully government will have adequate dialogue, pre-consultation before it gets introduced. It shouldn't be something suddenly, thrown open, because it will involve, again, having a relook at, the ERPs, how the transactions have been structured at the moment, of course, depending on the changes that get introduced.
Sure. Well noted, Gunjan. It was really a delightful experience to hear you speak. I think every bit of your over 14-year experience is, available for us to absorb the knowledge that you shared with our audience. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Megha, for taking out time and for inviting me for this interview. Really means a lot, and happy to contribute to Tax Sutra.
Thank you.
Thank you.